you, Senator, for joining us today. I am going to give you a chance to talk about your Gold Star Fathers Act, but we want to get to some other topics first, if you don't mind.
Of course. First,
the bombshell, Speaker Boehner resigning. What do you think the impact is going to be on Ohio and the tri-state?
Well, I think that it means less influence for Ohio. I mean, Ohio obviously, and Southwest Ohio obviously has 2 senators that are active and engaged and going to continue to work for the state, but losing the Speaker of the House sets us back a bit. I'm hopeful, though, that the House will become more functional, that the House of Representatives won't be a slave to the Tea Party, but will do things bipartisanly. I mean, John Boehner woke up every morning and had to decide, am I Speaker of the Tea Party or Speaker of the House of Representatives? And if he wants to put legislation to the fore, a highway bill, export-import legislation, we could pass it with 150 Democrats and 100 Republicans, and that's the way to run the House of Representatives. It's not been done that way because of Tea Party influence. I'm hopeful the new Speaker will be able to fix that.
Hopeful, but Democrats have had concerns that the replacement could be someone who cowers more to the demands of the far right. How do you think that will impact a long-term government spending bill, the presidential race, even the makeup of Congress?
Well, I think when the Tea Party has held Republican leadership hostage, which they've done for much of the last 5 years, you have slower economic growth, you have government shutdowns, you have food fights over things like Planned Parenthood, which is supported by 70 or 80% of the public. You can't get a highway bill. We were #1 in the world in infrastructure for decades. Now we're number 16, in large part because we won't pass a long-term transportation bill for highways and bridges and airports and medical research and community colleges like Sinclair and Cincinnati State and other schools around Ohio. So they've really abdicated their responsibility. I'm hopeful this new regime will move forward bipartisanly instead of always kowtowing to the Tea Party.
But you're being hopeful, but what if it's someone who is more conservative? Does that all happen that way in your mind?
Well, I think it's not a matter of conservative. John Boehner was plenty conservative. It matters who they're going to take their orders from, and are they going to be intimidated by the far right Tea Party Republicans and who don't mind shutting the government down. I mean, that's what we've seen happen time after time. Every time I was with the Secretary of the Air Force yesterday, she talked about how many thousands and thousands of hours Air Force personnel spend preparing just in case there's a shutdown. And they had to do it again, even though the government won't shut down today. Fortunately, the Tea Party won't shut it down over Planned Parenthood. But the fact the government workers have to prepare to do it means hundreds of millions of dollars lost. And if there is a shutdown, billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars wasted for nothing, just so people on the far right can check a political box and score their political points.
Russian airstrikes in Syria today, certainly a concern. What is the reaction around Washington today? Russia saying that the U.S. cannot enter into Syrian airspace. Secretary Kerry saying it's going to be mission as usual for the U.S. What is the feeling today in Washington?
Well, the feeling, first of all, there are a number of people here that seem interested in boots on the ground in the Middle East, either through the Iran nuclear negotiations or what's happening with ISIS in Syria. My view, and I think the view of many of us, is that we work with training of people in the Middle East to deal with their own problems and deal with ISIS. We have figured out a way on the Iran bill, on the Iran nuclear bill, to work with the Russians and the Chinese. I know the Russians are always difficult. They're especially difficult when it comes to Syria, but that's what diplomacy is all about. And sometimes you have to send troops, but this is not a time to send troops to the Middle East and get more immersed, as the U.S. did a decade ago, in Middle East warfare.
But what do we think the Russian end game is in Syria right now? At first it was they're not going after ISIS targets. Then as the day is settled, it seems maybe they're going after at least an umbrella group of Al-Qaeda. What is the belief right now?
I don't think anybody knows the end game. I do think, though, that most of us believe we help them with training, but not our troops. And in some cases, We look at going beyond, beyond just working with their troops. In some cases, you at least consider arms to the right people. But the danger in the Middle East is when you arm people that are fighting your enemy. So often things change, and so often some of those arms get into the hands of people, of terrorists like ISIS. So I think it's always caution. There's far too much recklessness in this town about sending weapons and sending troops and arming people in the Middle East, and we've paid a terrible price. I mean, ISIS exists because of our policy in 2002 and 2003 and starting the war in Iraq. So I hope that people in this town have learned from that, but I'm not so sure they have.
So we don't run out of time. I know you want to talk about the Gold Star Fathers Act.
Yeah,
You
sure.
see this as righting a wrong, truly, don't you?
Yeah, a young gentleman came to me named Scott Warner. His son Heath Warner was killed in Iraq not too many years ago, and we honor Gold Star mothers and have for generations. We should do the same for Gold Star fathers. One, it's an honor they should have and a designation they should have. Second, it gives them, as it gives Gold Star mothers, a little bit of an oomph when they apply for a federal job, giving them some extra points on their civil service application. We've done it for Gold Star mothers. We should do it for Gold Star fathers. This bill that I've worked on for 3 or 4 years since Mr. Warner from Canton, Ohio, approached me is being signed by the president this week. It's good news. It's minor to most, but to some people it really, really matters, and I think it's a good accomplishment for all of us.
Let's look ahead to the election. Do the Democrats need the vice president to step into the ring?
I'm hopeful that Joe Biden doesn't run. I don't think that in the end the vice president will run. I think, to me, I don't really care that much what's happening in the presidential in either party. I got other things to do. The country's not all that interested in presidential race so far, in spite of all the polls and the media attention. We've got too many things to do in the Senate and House to try to get this country on the right track, and I'm much less interested in the politics until next year.
One quick thing, is there anything Congress can do to stop what we saw last week with prescription drug prices, one going from up 5,000% before they retreated and changed their mind? Outrageous. What can be done?
One thing we can do is something that we've done for veterans, and that is to allow have the government negotiate, like the VA negotiates drug prices with the drug companies on behalf of veterans. And because of the buying power of millions of veterans, we save tens of billions of dollars in drug costs. And I think we should do the same for Medicare, and I think we should find some innovative ways to do similar things for drug prices overall. We pay far too high price for drugs compared to any other country in the world, even though those drugs are so often invented and developed in this country, often because of taxpayer investment, taxpayer research that the National Institutes of Health do that help the whole country. But unfortunately, the drug companies take that research, mark up the prices too much, and the public can't get access to these drugs.
All right. Senator, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Sure, of course. Do it again. Thank you.